right, so we're going to start the Romeo and Juliet argumentative essay. You already have your outline, which should be completely filled in. You should have all of the information that you need to complete this essay at your fingertips because of the outline that you created in class. So you should have the characters already listed, each in their own section. You should have the text evidence that you're using, your reasons, your text evidence, your connection, all of those things. You have the most of the content, the meat of the essay already created and ready. You just have to make sure you know how to put it all together and create this argumentative paper that you're going to write. I've made that easier for you because I've already given you a structure where you just plug in the information. In this essay, I am really more focused on the content, the quality of the information, your rationale, and your quotations and integration of those quotations than I am of you trying to figure out how to write a multi-paragraph essay at the same time. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on, and that's why I have written or really scaffolded. Some of these paragraphs are even framed for you, but I've scaffolded this essay so that at the beginning, you're kind of just filling in the blanks. You're just plugging in your information. And then as you get to the end, there's less and less and less guidance and help and structure. So you will gradually be doing all of the paragraph on your own by the time you get to the end. But for the sake of what we're doing, I've given you the most of the information that you need to get started. Okay? So of course, remember we're writing a rough draft. If we were already beginning the actual typing, the word processing stage, then you would be setting your spacing immediately to double spacing and all of those sorts of things. But we'll talk about that later when you are actually typing. Right now we are writing on our paper, old-fashioned writing. We are writing on the paper, but I do want you to go ahead and add your MLA heading, make sure that it's proper, it's correct, it's in the right space. Everything is done as it should be. You should already be able to do this. You don't even need to look up here if you ask me. Okay, you know it's not 2018. I just left that there. If you don't know what year it is, we have some troubles, much beyond this essay. So anyhow, make sure that your MLA heading is proper. You only need 4 lines because you're going to have this title on your paper. So go ahead and add this line on that top line. This is your title. Yes, you're going to underline Romeo and Juliet so that you'll remember to italicize it when you get to the word processing stage. Okay? Everyone's going to have the same title for this particular essay. Fast forwarding. So here we have paragraph 1, the intro paragraph. Okay, the intro paragraph. Look at your outline and see the information that you have. You're simply going to copy this paragraph, filling in the information where I've left blanks and given you suggestions as to what to write. All right, so you should be copying this and listening and all of those sorts of things. So, the very first sentence, remember, you indent. We're not block style, so this is indented. We indicate new paragraphs by indentations, not by additional space. So you indent, and then you write. The deaths of Romeo and Juliet in William Shakespeare's The Tragedy of Romeo and Juliet. Remember to underline that. It's the title. Things with multiple rooms, more pieces, need a foundation. Like a house with rooms needs a foundation. All right, so you want to underline that so you remember to italicize. Are both blank and blank. So ADJ here stands for adjective. You need 2 words that describe the deaths of Romeo and Juliet. Okay, what are some that come to mind? In class, those that were thrown out to me were words like tragic, devastating, sad, heartbreaking, those sorts of things. You get to choose 2 and insert them here. So, the deaths of Romeo and Juliet in William Shakespeare's The Tragedy of Romeo and Juliet are both, for sake of demonstration, tragic and heartbreaking, period. Okay? So you write your sentence and fill in those 2 blanks. Time. All right. So, although much could have been done to prevent their suicides, these star-crossed lovers, yes, write these in quotation marks. It is a character archetype. If you looked on your character archetype sheet, you would see that. This is a hyphenated word, so make sure you use the hyphen even if you don't go to a new line. All right? These star-crossed lovers ultimately are not able to avoid their destiny. Look at that. I wrote the whole sentence for you. You don't have to do a darn thing. So please copy that sentence. Okay. A series of unfortunate circumstances results in disaster, and even though many people could be to blame for their deaths, comma, Then you add the person, the character, you ranked as number 2 as far as responsibility is concerned. Number 2 here. And the character you ranked as number 1 here. Play particularly integral roles. Now that should jog your memory because in class last time, you already wrote this sentence. Remember what this sentence was called? That's right. It was your thesis statement. And you copied it. You integrated your number 2 ranked character and your number 1 ranked character, and then some of you wanted to change this word integral. You chose like important or vital or essential or something like that. Integral is perfect, of course, because I wrote it, so we know it's good. Just kidding. Okay? But you already have this. You already have it written down, so you can look in your notes or whatever you wrote on last class period, and you can write it right there. It might even be on that outline, right? So you can just copy it right in right now. Okay. So next we have the next sentence. Of course, comma, it's an introductory phrase there. Of course, comma. Now this stands for what? Counter argument. Very good. This stands for counter argument. So whoever is listed in whichever character is listed in your counter argument paragraph section of your outline is what you're going to write here. For some, that's your number 3 responsible person. Character. I can't get that in my head today. Okay? So, of course, whichever character you listed as the counter argument, the number 3, plays a vital role in the tragedy, comma, but the effects of the actions of number 2 and number 1 combine to seal the fate of the doomed lovers. All right. That's a lot to talk about or think about for a moment, so let's just break it down. Of course, counter-argument, remember for my illustrative purposes, I'm using nurse, okay? So, of course, nurse plays a vital role in the tragedy. Now, this word vital, if you use vital over here, don't use it again. Choose one of those words, integral, essential, important, something like that, okay? Switch it up. Don't forget your comma here. But you can say the actions of these characters. I'm going with the effects of the actions of, because I don't think it's just their actions. I think it's the results of their actions. So that's what I'm going to write, okay? So the effects of the actions of, and for my purposes, Lord Capulet and Friar Lawrence combine to seal the fate of the doomed lovers. When you have written yours, according to your plan and your outline and your chart, you've gotten here, your paragraph 1, your intro paragraph is complete. Woo! All right? Good. Done. So now we're moving on to paragraph 2. Paragraph 2 is the first body paragraph, of course. And in our essay, what is this paragraph to focus on? Right, your counter argument, okay? Now on your outline, it doesn't look like much of a counter argument. It looks like a supportive argument, but it's not because of what I have framed here. So when you look at my word choice, the structures I've already put in place for you that you're plugging in information, you'll see that it is a counter argument. Now, we are just including a counter argument. We are not really pointing home that this is more important than that or any of that sort of thing. We are just playing with the structure so that you have that experience under your belt, okay? There is much more strong argument that we can make, pro and con, for each of these characters, etc., to really pit them against one another, if you want to say it that way. But that's not what we're doing in this essay this time. We're really concerned with content and structure, okay? So, here we go. Paragraph 2, first body paragraph, for us, our counter argument. Remember, we're building from our counter argument to our most important point. That's how we're structuring this paper, as we talked about when we were creating that outline. All right, so again, all you have to do is fill in. While some believe that, for me, remember, the nurse, my counter argument character, while some believe that nurse is responsible for Romeo and Juliet's deaths, this is not the case. Now remember, your number 3, your counter argument is going to be someone else's number 1. They're going to think that character is the most responsible for all of this shenanigans and death, right? So that's why you're basically saying this. This is your argument. While some believe that your character, nurse, is responsible for Romeo and Juliet's deaths, this is not the case. Remember, what do we have to do when we're arguing with somebody? We have to not be rude. We can't just slam them down, tell them they're stupid, tell them their argument doesn't make any sense and it's worthless, and because you've lost them the second you're disrespectful in that way. You have to acknowledge that some of their ideas have some validity. You have to hear them out just like you want them to hear you out. You don't want to shut them down to where they're not willing to listen, right? So you want to give them a little bit of credibility for the, the arguments that they will have for the responsibility of this character. So therefore you acknowledge it before they do. Admittedly, I'll give you that. Admittedly, again, your counter argument, okay? Admittedly, the nurse has a large influence on. Now, let's pause. Notice I have the squiggly line. That means you can work with this. And notice that I have this highlighted, even I have a different color text here, and this highlighted separately. That's because you have some playing to do here. You get to have some leeway, all right? I'm letting you have some more of the leash. It could be something like this. Admittedly, the nurse plays a major role in, has a major impact on, there's all kinds of little things you can do right there, okay? So do your thing right there. Make sure that it's the right thing, but do that. If you want me to check it, I'll be happy to. You can have a peer look at it, whatever you like, classmate, okay? Admittedly, the nurse plays a major role in Romeo, words coming out of my mouth, in Romeo and Juliet's deaths. Because, okay, so some of you asked me before, can I say on the deaths of Romeo and Juliet? Yes, of course you can. I am not locking you in a cage and saying you can't play with this a little bit, okay? Just whichever way rocks your canoe is fine with me, okay? Because, now, reason number one, look at your outline. Look where you have in your outline, I think it's probably B, 2, B, and you wrote a reason. Reason number one, you even wrote that. Reason number one, and then you wrote the reason. Hey, that's what goes right there. See, when you do that work first, this is easy, right? So, do we ever use a comma with because? No, because we don't use it. It's big and strong. It doesn't need a little muscle help, okay? It's big. It doesn't need it. So, what happens after because? What you have written there should be an independent clause. It should be a complete sentence. And remember when I said, make sure that what you write in 2B is a complete sentence? This is why, friends. You just don't capitalize that letter this time, okay? So, admittedly, the nurse has a large influence on Romeo and Juliet's death because she yada, 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 and whatnot, period. There you go. Now, I've given you an example of the integrated quotation. Remember the integrated quotation notes that you just took and that I made that little video for? So you have the integration or integrating quotations information. I've done it. Here's an example. I'm showing it to you. Okay, so I've integrated a quotation here. You, on 2B1, have your text evidence. You found your quotation to support that reason. Now you have to integrate it, just like we talked about in that little practice. Okay, fish are friends, not food, that one. Here's my example for supporting my reason, that's not written up here, for the nurse, okay? She willingly acts as messenger between the two, as Romeo confirms the details of their nuptials, telling Juliet after meeting with Romeo, quote, there's my integrated quotation, hie you hence to Friar Lawrence's cell, there stays a husband to make you a wife. I am the drudge and toil in your delight. Okay, so I have my ellipses here, no ending punctuation mark. I have cited exactly what I needed to do. Notice I have Act 1, caps, lowercase scene 5, lines 73 through 74, and then line 80. Okay, so then I close, and there we have it. So I have my integrated citation here. That's what you should do. Time. Okay, so then look at your 2B2, where I said explain. Look at that! Lo and behold, this is where you explain. So if you took some of that explanation and used it to integrate your quotation, that's fine. But take the rest of it, or if you use some other way way of integrating. Take this information and show it here in your explanation of proof. Time. All right. Now, start this sentence. Additionally, I have more information. Do you have to use additionally? Nope. Remember on your useful transitions page that you have that I gave you in August and it's supposed to be in your binder? Look at the section that says adding information. You have lots of choices. I chose additionally for you. However, you can use furthermore, in addition, also. Look at the list. You got lots of them. Okay? So I'm writing additionally. Feel free. It's perfect. Additionally, comma, and look, reason number 2. It's in your outline already. Okay? So 2C, there's your reason 2. Write it here. There you go. Time. Now integrate the quotation that you have in SC1, and then include your explanation of proof that you have SC2. Time. Okay? Now, to wrap up that paragraph, we need a bridge. We need to bridge from our counter-argument paragraph, body paragraph 1, paragraph 2 of the essay. You need to bridge to paragraph 3. We don't want to leap. We want to get over nice and smoothly. So you'd take us on a bridge to paragraph 3. All right, so we're still in paragraph 2 after your explanation of proof for reason 2. And you have here, while these points are, and then look, I gave you some more choice. You can pick one, okay? So, while these points are compelling or valid or noteworthy even, comma, okay, you don't put it in parentheses. That's just showing you pick one, all right? While these points are noteworthy, comma, upon further investigation, and then I've inserted a character here. You insert your number 2. Whoever you said was number 2, okay? Whoever you said was the second most responsible, this is where you add that character's name. I'm going to go with Lord Capulet. I know it says Friar Lawrence, but I want to try to be consistent, even if I'm not right here, okay? So, while these points are compelling, upon further investigation, Lord Capulet should receive more blame. What does that tell you is going to be the focus of my next paragraph? Well, of course, it's going to be whichever character I just said there. Right, and since we're building to the most important, that's why we're jumping to number 2 next. Okay? So now, we're on the 3rd paragraph of this essay. Clearly, oh, don't forget your intention. Clearly, and there are some other words you can use there. Look at that transition sheet. It's your friend, so I made copies. You know I don't like to make copies. So if I make a copy and I give it to you and I 3-hole punch it, you're probably supposed to keep it in that binder like I tell you every time I give you something like that. Okay, so I'm going to start with clearly here. And then again, your number 2 goes in this hole. Clearly, comma, character number 2, look at what your outline says, is far more at fault than your counter-argument character, the one you were just talking about. Okay? So we do it this way. Write that sentence. Time. And here, another thing that you can start with. First of all, or to begin with, or something like that, check out the transition sheet. You might find something else you like, okay? So, and then you go with your first reason why. So you're on 3B, your first reason for character of second most responsibility. Then you integrate your quotation for that reason, and then you explain. Time. Then you go on to the next one in your outline. Another reason, number 2 character, holds greater responsibility than that first character. So you're still showing that's your argument here. Is, and there you go, 3C, your second reason for that character. Integrate your quotation. And then add your explanation of proof. Great. Time. Okay? Still in this paragraph. Obviously, comma, okay? Obviously, character 2 is much to blame for the deaths of the young lovers. However, what does however tell us? However tells us that, there's a shift, there's more, there's something different. Okay, we know that. We called it a shift word when we were talking about Shakespeare, right? I mean, in January. So, and we're talking about the writing of Shakespeare, when we're talking about sonnets, you look for those shift words. This tells us things are going to shift in another direction. All right, so obviously, number 2 is much to blame for the deaths of the young lovers. However, comma, he, she, it, whatever, he, she, or whatever, should not receive the full weight of culpability. That means there's somebody even more responsible that holds more of the burden. All right? So again, we've gotten that. That is our bridge. This is our bridge sentence, our transition sentence into the 4th paragraph, the 3rd body paragraph, which is going to be the paragraph in which we support the rationale for who we chose as the most responsible for the deaths of Romeo and Juliet. Okay? So, finally indicates that we're finally, here, let me move this down for you. There you go. We are moving this, or we're indicating that we finally made it to that paragraph that you've all been waiting for, right? You can look one on your transition sheet if you like, but I love finally, so that's what I chose. Finally, and perhaps most notably, remember, and maybe the most importantly, so you could use compelling again. I mean, don't repeat it, but there are some of those words up there that you can borrow from, okay? Finally, and perhaps most notably, who did you rank as number 1? Look at section 4 of your outline. Very good, okay? Perhaps most notably, whoever, number 1, is the most at fault for the deaths of Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Juliet's deaths. However you want to do it, okay? Indeed, it was, number 1, that, and then you have to use a verb. What did that character do? What did they do, right? And you should have this. This is your reason, etc. So you don't have to use my exact verbs and my exact, wordage here, but it will probably help you, okay? So look at it, look at your sentence, see what you have. I'll work with you whenever you need me to. If you have questions, just call me over. All right? Here's another example. Even though the nurse, for me, remember, can go this way. Even though the nurse did this and my second character did that, number 1 did something even more important. I frankly like this one. This one is a little more simplistic, but what this one does is it really calls back right into the thick of the action and into your argument. Since this is an argumentative essay, it really calls back into play those 2 characters that you've been writing about and talking about, and you're saying, yeah, they're important, but they're not the most important. I'm arguing my point. So this second version, starting with even though, might be a more strong option, okay? So look and see how you want to do it. Think about it, plan it, don't rush this decision. Look at your reasons, etc. Reason, start with the first one, of course, and we'll play with it. Call me over if you need help, let me know. Okay? Once you get there, integrate the quotation for number 1, explanation of proof for number 1. Time. All right, then we go with that second reason. Remember, I'm adding information just like that useful transition sheet shows me, okay? So, furthermore, that means I have more to tell you, I have more to add. There's more here. Furthermore, second reason, integrate quotation, integrate explanation. Heck, you can go on for more. If this is your character that you're saying is the most responsible for the deaths of Romeo and Juliet, then for heaven's sakes, you might have more than 2 reasons. You might have 3, you might have 4. This paragraph can go on and on and on. I don't care, as long as it makes sense and it's well constructed. Don't go on for the sake of going on, okay? When you finally have listed the most meaningful reasons, whether you have 2, 3, or 4, whatever, then, and you follow that pattern, integrate quotation, explain, connect, etc., then you write this. For these reasons, the ones I've laid out up here, for these reasons, number 1, whoever your number 1 is, is primarily or chiefly, one of those, that means top dog, most important, okay, is primarily or chiefly culpable. So I used the word culpability or something like that up there, and now I have culpable. Do you guys even know what that means? Think of the word culprit, right? Because they have the same root. So what is culprit? The culprit is the one who is responsible, the one to blame. It has to do with guilt. That's mea culpa, my fault, okay? So who is chiefly at fault for the deaths of Romeo and Juliet, or Romeo and Juliet's deaths. The body at that point is finished, okay? So you write all of this, work with me, work with a classmate, come to Titan Time, whatever you need to do to finish that time. When you have finished, you write your concluding paragraph. You recap the major ideas, which is, well, some people believe this one, there's this one, but really this one, because yada yada, and restate that thesis, all right? So remember, you know how to write a concluding paragraph. Some of you in your outline already added a bunch of information. So remember I told you you worked too hard? That's what I meant by that. Like, you didn't even have to do that in the outline. We were just writing really superficial things. So some of you already have the bits or even the beef for that concluding paragraph. You write that on your own. I told you it was getting scaffolded to where you had very little assistance comparatively. Okay? Please keep this in mind. Conclude your paper with a thoughtful but more general statement about William Shakespeare or his play. Don't say something really silly like, oh, it's so good. Okay, first of all, you're a freshman. We don't really need that much of an opinion from you. Okay, kidding. I'm just kidding. But we know it's great. That's why it's lasted 450 years, right? Because it's good stuff. So don't evaluate it in terms of whether it's good or bad or boring or not boring or anything like that. Just about how it's timeless and the messages last, because you can connect William Shakespeare to, you know, even your modern life or the modern society. No first person. You should never show your face in this essay. No I. No one cares about I think, I feel, I believe. Remember? No. State everything as if it's fact, etc. So it's not about your opinion here. The timeless works of William Shakespeare stand, even to this day. This is a terrible sentence, but because, you know, whatever. So you can conclude that way. All right. So it needs to be something that makes sense and connects logically. You can ask again a classmate, or come see me, or ask someone else, get advice, or worst case scenario, leave this off and just kind of generically wrap it up. I'd love for you to be more insightful. I'd love for you to be more eloquent and more sophisticated, but don't force it. If it doesn't make any sense to add something about how we have to take responsibility and be careful with the way that we treat one another, because if we don't, you know, it can result in disaster. People can get hurt, those sorts of things. If you want to connect it like that, then knock yourself out. That'd be fantastic. Okay? Don't literally knock yourself out. I'd like to see you again next time. So, now, you and I both know that this took much, much, much longer than what this video did. My little times when I said time, you were working and working and working. But since I'm literally alone in this room, this is all for the sake of supplementation or for absences. So